female side.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Uncanny Omar. You're watching Near Mid Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I've got two amazing creators with me. Got Joe Pruett coming on board for the first time with us. And I've got the return of the legendary Ron Marz. How are you both doing? Happy New Year to both of you, by the way.
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to see Ron back. And Joe, I've got so many questions that you've probably answered in the past, but I know both of you are here to talk about the Negative Burn, the anthology, and a big shout out to Jordan for putting all this together, by the way.
Right.
So thank you both for joining me. And sorry about the last minute cancellation last week. My allergies were rough. I was telling Joe we ended up getting 2 stray kittens, and they have destroyed my life. But they're wonderful. So, and my daughters love them. So I'm like, well, I'm an idiot. So I'll live with it and learn to cope. And yeah, so
it's like
what brought this project on? By the way, this project is amazing. If people have not checked out the Negative Burn Zoop, I'm going to leave the link. Actually, the link is in the description of the video if you're watching this later, and the link will be here as well within the chat. And I see some people chiming in already. How is it going, everybody? Hope he comes to Heroes Con this year.
Yeah,
Ron, have you done Heroes Con, Ron? Have you, Joe?
I've done it. It was always, it always fell on Father's Day weekend for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And if my choices were, hanging out with you bunch of nerds or being here with my kids, I'd pick my kids. But
but why did kids buy you plane tickets then?
Now my kids are older and they don't care. So
that happens.
So there's probably a better than usual chance that I'll make a return to Heroes, if not this year, in the near future.
Yeah, probably 80% chance I'll be there. I try to go every year, but you never know what life happens sometimes.
Yeah, as it does. Okay, Ron, you've been on my channel a lot. And I've gotten to talk to you so many times about the comics that I've loved, the comics that a lot of my viewers have loved. Joe, I've never had a chance to talk to you, and I've always wanted to ask you something before we talk about the Negative Burn. How in the world did you
get stuck with Ron as a friend?
No. We'll get to that later. How
on the list.
did you get into the world of X-Men? Because I don't know, you wrote this era of X-Men that hasn't been truly collected that well. I mean, we've got some of it in Omnibus format, some of it is in an Epic collection. But you came on board with the X-Men during like the X-Men the 12. There was the miniseries that you did. There was the Domino miniseries.
Magneto Rex.
Yeah, and then Magneto Rex with Brandon Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen, man?
It's funny. I grew up a big.
By the way, I really like your cable. I need to go ahead and say that.
Okay,
I really like your cable run.
I grew up in X-Men and Marvel Zombie. I loved all that stuff. Then in the 80s, I discovered independent comics and became a big independent comics nerd. Maybe not even nerd, maybe snob would be a better choice of it. I wouldn't read Marvel and DC anymore. And if I bought a comic in the comic shop, I'm like, I hope nobody sees me.
You're one of those guys. Okay.
Yeah, one of those guys. But then when I was in the 90s, doing Negative Burn and being at Caliber Comics and stuff in the 90s, as the distribution wars kind of started destroying smaller companies like Caliber, kind of putting us out of business. Right around that time, it was a article in a British magazine of some sort, quoted some unnamed person at Marvel saying that they were looking to go grab a bunch of the indie creators and getting some press out there, and my name was listed, and Brian Bendis and David Mack, who were with me at Caliber at the time.
Yeah.
And probably, I think, maybe Phil Hester and Andrew Robinson and 1 or 2 other people. So we all started kind of chit-chatting with each other. Go, well, who wrote this article? Who's this unknown Marvel character, a person they quoted? And one guy said, well, I think it might be Jason Liebig at the time. He was the assistant editor on the X-Men. And because he likes to know indie stuff. And so, but nobody knew. So I didn't know. None of us knew Jason. So I said, okay, fine. I'll call him. I'll reach out to him. And he goes, well, no, it wasn't me, but send me what you have. I like to see your stuff. And I did some like Caliber stuff and the image stuff I was doing the day too, when Jim Valentino started his black and white line.
Yeah.
And he liked what he saw. So he hired me to come do an inventory story on Wolverine, which later got published down the line. And from that, they hired me for X-Men Limited, and they hired me for Cable. And actually, they gave me Magneto Rex first. I guess was my tryout. And they really liked what I did there. That's when they hired me for both X-Men Limited and Cable right after that. So that's how I got into Marvel. It was really weird. This guy who, me, who grew up a Marvel zombie, who became too good to read Marvel and DC comics, all of a sudden writing X-Men comics. It was really bizarre, and I never thought I would be there. But it was kind of like playing with these toys in the sandbox I used to play in as a kid. It became fun. I was like, oh, I really miss these characters. I love these characters. I grew up with them. This is fun writing them.
That's awesome. I don't even know. You just mentioned something that I don't even know if they do these days, which is you said an inventory story where it's just something you write and then who knows years later.
Yeah.
They used to do a lot of those for like the Marvel.
Do it. Rob probably knows more than I do now. But back in the day, they wanted an issue ready to go in case someone missed the deadline.
Yeah, and I don't know if they still do that or not. Ron, do you know if they do or not?
Yeah, I mean sometimes, but virtually every editor is overworked completely, and is running so close to the bone in terms of deadline that there's they hardly have the time to get their regular books out. So having an inventory issue that they're also sort of tickling along in the background is a tough thing. But yeah, I mean it's still done. It's nowhere near as common as it used to be. It used to be every editor had 2 issues of something in the can just waiting. So that if somebody dropped the ball or act of God, they had a book ready to go that was they could be sandwiched into the run wherever.
I loved as a kid. I didn't know that's what they were. Right. I just thought, oh wow, what a weird time to have a flashback in the middle of a event.
What a special issue.
This doesn't look like the rest of these issues that are being drawn by this guy.
They were also useful for trying out new talent, and if they dropped the ball, okay, nothing in the publishing schedule got impacted. But if somebody proved that they could do the job, okay, then you offered them a little bit more, and it was it's still to a great extent the same. The same rungs of the ladder. You break in at Marvel or DC, and they give you a little bit and a little bit, and as long as you keep hitting the deadlines and keep turning the jobs in, you can work your way up to a regular book. I think there were more avenues back then to try out. Marvel Comics Presents and DC Showcase and those sort of spots where you come in, do an 8-page story, much like Negative Burn. That's a segue, gentlemen.
Enjoy.
But a lot of times those were that was the proving ground for new talent. Is you came in and did a short story, and if you could do a short story, they figured you could probably do an issue.
Well, that's what my thing was. Wolverine was an inventory story. They liked it. I got the mini series. They liked it. I got 2 regular series. And now that you mentioned, I did another inventory story with Brett Booth where we're doing X-Men Limited together, which at the time was tied in with the regular Uncanny and regular X-Men titles. When I was on it, we actually tied in. So I had to wait for the script from, at the time it was Alan Davis and Chris Claremont.
The Agents of Apocalypse story.
Yeah. So they'll say, here's what we did in our issues. And I'm like, okay, now what can I do to, supplement that? And so in the meantime, they would say, well, why don't you and Brett do an inventory story, which I remember it's already it was drawn and everything, but never published. We actually went to like the negative zone. So it was kind of a fun story. I wish I'd have gotten out there at some point.
Man, that's so cool. Even, and I was being serious. I've really dug your take on Cable. Really interesting that you got in there right. Like if memory serves me right, it was right during that crossover, the 12 after the Magneto Rex story, and you got to work with Rob Liefeld, who co-created Cable.
Yeah, Rob got hired first, and they hired me to come write it. So we did 3 issues together. At the time, in his defense, Rob's dad was passing away, so he was having problems with the deadlines, I believe, at the time. And so we only did the real issues 91 and 93, 71 and 73 were fully him and I, and then 75. Even though I'm credited as writing, I really didn't write. I scripted it, but I didn't do the outline plot. And I'm not really at this point still sure who did. But they came in and they were saying, "Oh, hey, I was in Marvel offices and say, hey, Rob's turning pages in. Can you script them while you're here? We'll give you an office on my laptop." I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll do that." Then they gave me like pages coming off the fax machine. That's how long ago it was. And they were like, I didn't have a plot to work with. The pages weren't numbered. They're all splash pages. And I was like, okay, this is page 12. This is going to be page 13.
That's the Marvel way, wasn't it? Like the old school Marvel way. We'll figure this out as we go along. By the way, we got
take me off the writer, but they didn't. But anyway, so all the other issues I did write.
This is a really sweet story. Albany Comic Con a few years back, my son wasn't really old enough to know the difference between artists and writers, but he knew Ron created Kyle Rayner. Ron drew the Green Lantern symbol for him and signed it. So thanks, Ron. He cherished that sketchbook and to this day. That's awesome, man.
And coincidentally enough, that is the only thing I can draw.
Well, Green Lanterns.
That is the extent of my artistic abilities.
Thanks for that. I'm glad Marz coming back too.
Yeah, so Negative Black brings back memories. Was a regular letter writer. Nice to see you.
Oh, there we go.
How in the world did you guys? Okay, so Joe obviously was in with the cool kids. He was in with the hipsters coming in, like David Mack and Brian Michael Bendis, the indie scene as they took over in the early aughts.
Oh yeah.
How did you two meet?
Me and Ron?
What was your meet cute for the creative side of things?
Online dating service, was it, Ron? I don't remember.
I actually don't know.
Probably just met at cons.
I think a lot of times you're the guys that you end up being friends with. You look back and you go, I have no idea where I met you. It's just it's in this business there are enough gathering points that you bump into people and you just end up hanging out. And I was and am friends with Joe and his brother Jim for 25 years, 30 years. So we've been in the same fantasy football and baseball leagues for about that long. So
and congratulations, Ron, to your victory in football this year. But you'll never beat me in baseball, so don't get your
that's also true.
Love that the trash talk never ends. This is nice. Yeah, well done.
But yeah, I don't remember when we first met. I think we kind of became more friendly once you got down to CrossGen. Is when we kind of, I think, becoming more friendly. I think we were friends before then. I remember we played softball.
Yeah, Joe came down and played softball with the CrossGen softball team a few times. We needed the help.
I always love hearing those stories about
artists and writers not famously known for their athletic ability.
Ron, did you play softball at San Diego Comic-Con with us? It was like Marvel. It was always the publishers versus distributors. Back when you had like 13 distributors.
I played for last time I played. I think I played for the DC team. And Didio was like really pissed that Peter David wasn't taking the game seriously. So there was some tension on the sidelines. I
remember
Isan Ribic was out there like batting one-handed because he had a cigarette in the other hand.
I remember at San Diego softball, we would go play in Balboa Park. And, Steve Jeff would show up in his uniform with his $300 bats because he took it so seriously. And we were playing with cardboard bases. And they got mad because they called me and Jim ringers because we were destroying them. That was
Jeppy was, he showed up in his baseball pants. And so I still play in a couple of softball leagues. And, those are the dudes. Those are the dudes we call pantsers.
Wow.
If you show up in a beer league softball game wearing baseball pants, you got a target on your back already.
Oh, I do. I do.
So so there's a lot of. Oh, did your mom wash those for you? They look nice.
They got big holes in the knee from running around and stuff.
Looking now, it's almost like we're almost getting there to that number of distributors these days with everything going on in distribution. I don't know if they'll ever get back to 13. My gosh, but
I'm messed up right now. Yeah,
it's getting crazy. So
why I'm doing crowdfunding.
Tell me about Negative Burn. And for people that aren't familiar with it, this is, I think, your third go around, right? This would be the third.
And the original classic series was at Caliber Comics. It debuted in July of '93 and ran 50 issues, which I guess I ended around early '98. Mm-hmm. It won several nominations for the Eisners and the Harvey Awards, and got me nominated for Best Editor at the Eisners, Best Short Story at the Eisners. It was always me, Ron. You ever notice that? And then when I started Desperate Publishing around 2005. I was talking to Eric Stevens over at Image, and he kind of talked me into bringing it back. Well, actually, I take it back. I started as 2 original graphic novels, and just do it like one winter it's 25, one 2005, one summer 2005 or something. I was just doing when I felt like doing it. And then he convinced me to do it as a monthly again, and I ran 21 issues doing that. Image, and then when I went solo. I don't think, and I don't mean to be negative about the second series. I didn't have my heart and soul in that one. Like the first series, I was young, I was ambitious, I was driven, and who can I get in this book? Let me go get Mobius. Let me go to Alan Moore. Let me go get I try to get John.
Yeah, the talent is insane for Caliber Press at the and I don't mean that in an offensive way, but to me, Caliber was always like, oh, they're kind of like the local dudes that are making comics. That's awesome. I remember who did I know at Caliber? Quentin Hoover and my gosh, Morgana X writer Alan Freeman, maybe. And
that book. It was what Caliber was. It was local. It was Vance Locke, and it was Guy Davis. It was Gary Reed. They were local guys. And then it became kind of like a place where you start your career, move on. But when I came to Caliber, I started working with them as a writer in '92. Mm-hmm. And then Negative Burn started in '93, and then I became kind of like a talent scout for them. What my goal at Caliber and I help do is I help you can start your career, move on there. That's great, but I went and got the guys who already had careers and say, hey, have fun. So that's when I got the Garth Ennis's, like I said, the Alan Moores and Mobiuses, all these other people. Let's come do projects over here that you and just have fun. Make your money elsewhere. Have fun over here. So it became a little bit of both a starting place and your established place. And that's what Negative Burn was basically. Started it with as an idea to do a one shot with just some of our friends. Thank you so much. Just do a one shot with our friends. And then before the first issue came out, all of a sudden it was going to be, well, we'll do it as a ongoing series. Oh, we're going to do it as a 20, then it became like a 40-page, a 48-page story. I was getting so much talent in Wob that became this monster beast for me that we did it monthly. And it was great because at the beginning, everybody said it would never last because it was a black and white monthly with no genre attached to it. And I said, hold my beer. And sure I can do it. Okay. And it was a lot of fun. It made my career. I'll be honest. It really made my career. And a lot of the guys who have great careers now start off there. So I have a lot of pride that I was able to, see the potential in a lot of these writers and artists back in the day and see them grow like they have is just really kind of rewarding to me as well. And even somebody like Ron, if Ron had been in there, he would be even bigger star than today.
He's huge. Don't give him a bigger ego, man.
That's why he's in this new version. The new version became because, when I was doing publisher Aftershock, I did an anthology called Shock there, a couple of volumes. And I remember those. I had Neil Gaiman's, I had the R.L. Steins, the Jim Starlins, and I know a bunch of newer guys as well. Anthology is kind of in my blood, and I can't really get rid of them. And so when I've been, now that I left Aftershock a couple of years ago, and going out on my own again, freelancing, and I've had a couple of different publishers say, "Hey, both Image and Boom both mentioned me. Would you want to do Negative Burn again?" And I was like, it's a lot of work. I don't know. I'm really more focused on me today. But as we started talking about it, and it's funny because both of them mentioned why don't we do Negative Burn, and both of them at the same time later on said, maybe not. But they got my blood running again. I was like, you know what? Now I do want to do it. And so, like we discussed with the distribution problems today, I said, well, let's just try crowdfunding and just see what happens there. And so I went out and grabbed a bunch of my friends and Ron, and my goal is to make the greatest volume of Negative Burn ever, and I think we're doing that.
Okay, so I do have some follow-up questions about this. The biggest one, since as Ron knows, I'm a big fan of the big collected editions. You have 71 issues with the original 50 and then the 71.
No,
those haven't been available. I know I looked. Those haven't been available in print for many years. As a matter of fact, I don't think they've all been collected. You had a best of, I think.
I think
Image. Yeah. Now, so who? And this might be a tougher question, but who would own the rights to print those classics?
The creators own all the rights to all the stories. So in order to do a collection like you're discussing, I have to go to every single creator and say, "Can I publish this?" And then I have to get the artwork and stuff, which you probably scan high quality from black and white comics and stuff. Yeah. But getting all of them to say yes is a losing proposition. It won't happen. A lot of them don't want to see don't want their early work out, or some have passed away.
So you would have to get the estate or somebody.
Go to the estate, and some of them, they're probably people you don't really want to reprint right now.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that part too. Yeah. Man, it's just to me this corner of the comic book industry that I hate to see lost with time, because we've seen it happen with physical media when it comes to VHS that don't get transferred over to DVD. Therefore, they don't have there's so many books, and I know that there's so many comics out there that will probably never be collected anywhere that people have forgotten. But to me, I'm a sucker for anthologies, dude. As soon as I found out about this, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley, man. I love this stuff, especially when creators are kind of given this freedom to do what they want to, that they're still limiting them to the page count, of course, but giving them the freedom to do what they want. I think that that gets the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, there's no genre attached to it. It's like I don't want to limit somebody to what they want to do. I said again, go back to go and have fun.
Yeah,
and the idea of doing a big omnibus and Negative Burn, the original series and stuff, I'm not going to say never. I kind of like the idea of that. I mean, I don't think it would collect everything, but I'm sure I could, if I really wanted to, I could get enough to make a really nice collection.
If you need help getting the Rolodex out to contact people, you just let me know.
Right. Omar wants that hardcover, man.
I do. My brother knows, man. Ron knows how I am.
But you like hardcovers? I couldn't tell.
You couldn't really.
But that's me too. I don't buy comics anymore. I buy hardcovers.
I think they look sharp on the shelf, and I love. My wife still collects single issues, by the way.
I'm a book guy. I mean, I worked as a manager at Barnes Noble and Borders for 7 years in between. Well, I was writing X-Men. Actually, I was working at Barnes Noble as a manager. So,
wow, yeah. So when did you get involved in this, Ron? And what is your role exactly? Are you just a contributor? It seems like you guys are rivals at some
mentor. He's my huge mentor.
Mentor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's a real thing. I mean, anytime Joe's up to something, I usually get an email or a text, more often a text that says, "Hey, dummy, you got some time to do something?" So,
Somebody else let me know. Are you available?
So look, the honest truth is I wouldn't say no to Joe, except once in a while in a baseball trade that he's already seen me
mapping out baseball for this year, Ron.
So so part of it is, just, I'm going to make time. And frankly, for a writer, it's easier to make time in your schedule to, do an 8 or 10 page story. Set aside a day or a day and a half and you get it done. Then obviously it's the artist is the one who's really got the time, has to work out the time to draw the thing. But the other part of it is I just like writing short stories. I really enjoy the process of coming up with a story and then figuring out how to make it fit into 8 or 10 pages at the most. I've got, I think, 4 short stories being drawn right now for different projects. Just because you can come in, do your thing, and get back out and move on to something else. And it also, doing short stories allows you to work with a range of artists, and frankly, that's one of the big attractions to this job in the first place, is you get to work with really good people. So you want to work with as many of them as possible. So the story that's going to be in Negative Burn this time is going to be a Western that Tom Raney's drawing, which is actually sort of the first part of a longer story. So we'll see where the rest of it goes. But this first chapter is something that Tom and I have kind of been kicking around for a while. And then Joe got in touch and said, hey, you got something, and maybe don't do a horror story, because we've got a bunch of those already. And look, anytime I can get to write a Western, I'm all for it. I just wrote one for Will Conrad for another project, for another anthology project. So I got in touch with Tom and said, hey, can you get it done by this date? And he said, yeah. So Tom is working on a super secret DC project right now that he'll have to bed by the end of February or so, and then we'll be off and running on this. So to me, these are always a pleasure, and the fact that it's black and white is also really cool. That's not an opportunity you get to do very often. Although the Will Conrad Western that I just did is going to be black and white with gray tones, because that's the way we wanted to do the story. So you sort of have a little bit more leeway in the kind of thing that you're going to do when you're doing a short story, when you're doing an anthology piece.
How many pages, Ron, is your story?
I think it's 11.
Okay.
But we'll probably actually make it 12, so it's an even number, and it doesn't make Joe's life miserable trying to fit it into the book.
Splash page.
But it's when I teach comics, I have the class, the homework every week is to basically write a 6-page story, from outline to beat sheet to the breakdowns to the dialogue. So week by week, we go through and do a 6-page story, because doing a story at that page count, 6-8 pages, forces you to cut away all of the fat. You got to separate the wheat from the chaff. You have to every panel has to count, every page has to count. If you're going to do a 20-page issue, there's a little bit more room to wallow in it, which is not what we're trying to teach. The process is to make sure that you're utilizing every panel for a reason. Every page has a reason to be in that story. So I like the exercise of doing it myself, because it's a bunch of fun. And Darryl Banks is drawing a Green Lantern story of mine right now. Bart Sears is drawing an Exo Man of War story. Tom Raney will be drawing this shortly. Just cool to see the pages come in. You go to your inbox every morning and there's another page.
That's fun.
You had me at Kyle Rayner, but we'll come back to that later. Joe, this is a really good question that, I could go through the list of people that are attached to this, but fans of what kind of books would like Negative Burn? What kind of pitch would you give J. Michael White as somebody that thinks it looks interested, but he's not 100% sold?
Well, if you like stories that are not the norm, that are offbeat, that allow the creator to really create and not be tied down to a certain way to tell a story, that's the kind of story we're doing here. It's like, as somebody mentioned earlier, the old Vertigo, when Vertigo launched, it was the place to be. It was so much fun, and that was my place. I loved so much too.
Yeah.
So the early Vertigo is a big influence on stuff like Negative Burn. We all came up at the same time, and that's why I went and grabbed a bunch of the creators. Look who I have in there. I have Peter Milligan's in this one. He's an early Vertigo guy. I have to look at the list.
I can go through the list if you want me to. I just wanted you to see or to hear you give your pitch.
Yeah, it's just great stories by great creators unleashed.
So you've got, oh my goodness, Mike Allred, you've got Brian Boland, JMD Mateus, you've got Mike Carey.
Yeah, all Vertigo guys. Yeah,
Marjorie. Yeah, you grabbed the Vertigo guys. Sam Keith, a name that I love to see so much.
Cover. Yeah.
Some guy named Ron Marz.
You have to let the little guy in too.
Little guy, yeah. Joe Pruett. Don't know if you know that guy. But Dan Panosian, Steve Niles, James Robinson, Declan Chauvet. Man, you got some big
Paul
guns
Pope.
in this collection. Pope's doing something. Yeah. Let me see. Francisco Francavilla, Phil Hester, who will be on the channel actually on Thursday.
Oh, really?
We'll talk to him about this too.
He's a Negative Burn #1 guy, 1993. So bringing him back.
Wow. That's right. He does come from that the indie world. Yeah. Who else did I see that caught my attention? Milligan. Well, you mentioned Milligan.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem like you went for those Vertigo guys. So good for you. That's awesome.
I didn't realize I was doing it. But that's what I like,
I think the other positive is that, especially doing one at this size, it's not a 24-page issue. It's a big book. There's going to be something in there you're going to fall in love with. You might not love every story that's in the book, but you're going to love a lot of them. And the variety, it's a smorgasbord. It's not just, hey, there's a superhero and he's going to beat up a guy. This is a bunch of different stuff. And these are hopefully little gems of ideas that creators have had that are looking for a place to put them. Which sounds kind of dirty when I think about it now. But this is your chance to the story nugget that's been stuck in your head for 5 years. This is a chance for us to get those things out onto the page, and to do them without anybody really looking over our shoulder. Because yes, Joe is the editor and he's herding all the cats on this, but creatively he's going to give us the room to run and kind of do some stuff that we might not get a chance to do if we were working on a more mainstream book.
One of my favorite things about anthologies like this is what Ron just said about finding, you will find something that you will enjoy. But another thing is when I was younger, anthology series would get me to check out people's work. I was like, man, I really like that story, or I really like that artwork. I need to go and see what else they've done. Now it's a lot easier because we've got the internet, right? You can just Google someone's name and see what else they've done. But back in the day, man, you had to do some searching. You had to, this is somebody brand new, and I'm here like at the very beginning of their career. This is really cool. That was one of my favorite things about anthologies, and it makes me happy that this is going to be just anything goes. It's not just, you're not just restricting people to science fiction or horror. So when you said Western, I was like, yeah, that's awesome, because we don't have a lot of that these days.
Yeah, there's not enough Westerns out there, period. Nope. Whether it's TV, film, comic, I think especially comics, because it's just, it's not where the zeitgeist is right now. Despite stuff like Yellowstone and Landman, which are basically Westerns, they just happen to be contemporary Westerns.
So popular Westerns, but I'll take it like Dallas was, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have a guy doing a gunfight in the middle of a dusty street. That's good stuff, and you don't get a chance to do that in a lot of places. So something like Negative Burn is a perfect venue for creators to scratch an itch they've got.
Well, there you go. Your pitch worked. Yeah. Good job, man. Good job.
We'll have a Western. We'll have horror. We'll have slice of life. We'll have some semi-autobiographical. I think Mike Carey's is going to be kind of like that. There'll be a little bit of everything for everyone. I guarantee you probably like 80%. If you get 90%, I've hit a home run.
So I have to ask the very obvious question about this type of crowdfunding when you've got 17 days left, and with a crowdfund like this, do you use it as a kind of like a gauge to be like, okay, I think there's enough interest that we could actually start putting these out in the direct market or in the book market back again as a monthly anthology? Is that something you want to take on? Because I don't know. I don't know what you want to do with this, Joe. I don't know if you want to be like a one and done, or if you're like, I think I want to continue doing this.
I think I'm all hyped up again about doing it. So I'd like to do is, if this does well, then we'll do more. Would that be more crowdfunding? I can see myself doing 3 to 4 a year if that works out like that. Will it be a monthly again? Probably not, only because it depends on where I would take it. Right now my relationships are like with Image and Boom, and I've already discussed it with both of them. Now maybe they might come to me again if we do really well and say, hey, we were wrong, let's do it now. So I would definitely consider it. It was my first baby, so it doesn't mean I don't want my baby to grow up and leave the house.
I was gonna say, when they approach you again, that's when you can take that idea of, hey, let's reprint some of those old stories that we may need restoration for. Leave that heavy lifting to the publisher.
I would still do all that.
Wow, that's awesome.
I do all the productions for all my books as well. I want to be a writer more than anything. That's what I enjoy doing the most. But in my career, which is thank you for Viking Moon, in my career, I've done a little bit of everything. I guess I have that personality where I can't just do one thing. I broke in wanting to be an artist. Quickly realized I wasn't going to be. I thought, well, okay, I'll be a writer. Then as I'm starting to write, I said, well, no, I'm going to be an editor, and a letterer, and ink backgrounds. I said, oh wait, now I want to be a publisher. I want to be a publisher now. And when I started doing my art book line, we just did a Joe Jusko new art book on Kickstarter in September. It raised like $140,000. It was really great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm doing Jim Starr on that. So I'm gonna start doing those again, quarterly, hopefully, every 3 or 4 months. We did 10 of them in the past, and the first one I was doing the Brian Ballin book, which won the Eisner for me. I wasn't setting out to be the designer on it. I actually hired a designer who didn't get the work done. I hired another designer who didn't get the work done. I said, screw it, I'll do it myself. So I learned how to do design work, and I did 10, very successful art books back in the day, and now I'm doing that again because I can't do just one thing. I have to do more things at the time. So I'll be a writer, I'll be a designer, I'll be the editor, and I'll be Ron Marz's best friend for life if he pays me.
Well, Joe says this stuff, and the truth of it is, anthologies are a huge pain in the ass.
Oh, they are,
because you are, he is hurting the cat troop of, when you are an editor on a regular series, right, you're hurting 4 or 5 creators. Well, there's 4 or 5 creators on a lot of these stories just by itself. So, so it grows exponentially. So Joe is ultimately sort of running down, 50, 60, 70 creators to get all of this stuff done. And it's, and if one person doesn't finish the job, the book can't go. Right. So this is why Ron does not edit anthologies, because I don't want to have this pain in the ass. But thank God Joe's willing to do it. So
I did 1 monthly issue of Negaburn, never missed a deadline.
It's a learned skill. It's school of hard knocks to, but part of it is also you hire people that you can trust, and they're going to get the work done, because stuff happens in this business all the time, and somebody drops the ball. So it's a big lift, but I'm really happy that it's back, and that it's out there so people can sample all this stuff. It's not just pizza. There's a lot of different flavors on the table, and hopefully people embrace that. They certainly did in the 90s. That was sort of the first blush of, there's more than superheroes out there. So I think it's a viable thing, but it's Joe's problem now.
Joe, you said you never miss an issue.
Never missed a monthly issue.
Do you use inventory stories?
I do have inventory. So I was going to bring that back. I was going to bring it back around. Speaking of inventory,
all right.
So in the original series, we always had extra stories that would go later on. But if somebody missed a deadline back in the day like that, I said, okay, I'll take that one and put it here. And I'll pick this one and put it there. I could do that back then. Do something like this on crowdfunding where I list here's the creators going to be in. What's listed will be in. I'm not going to, nobody's going to come out. But there might be some people get added in, perhaps. Who knows? Because we do have stretch goals. And if we hit the stretch goals, we're adding more pages. So,
how about
go? Yeah.
So let's talk about this really quick. So for the people that are ordering right now, the what kind of timeline do you have with this? Of course, taking into consideration that things, as Ron said, happens with printers and shipping. And what are you hoping to when are you hoping to have the physical copies of this?
The current goal is right now, the way I have it in my mind and on my calendar, is that this runs through probably another 3 weeks, give or take. So that puts us into February. I'm giving all the right artists and stuff, because nobody's really, most of the artists not going forward until we get going and get this fundraising done, because I was not in the position where I can say start working, and if we don't make it, I'll pay you for work you're done. That's not the position I'm in. My position is I can't do this if we don't make the money. So while we do have the money, in the raise right now, the reality is we want to make more, not just because we're greedy, because we're not. That's not the reason I'm saying we need to make more. It's because I want to be able to pay the creators more. Because most every creator who's working on this project are working on pennies on the dollar just to do it. So I want to make sure they get financially rewarded, even though it won't be their regular rate, no matter what we get to. But I like to see them make more than they're committed to right now. So the more money we raise, more money goes to them. I mean, I don't make money personally until we probably hit like 25 grand. So I'm not going to, this, I'm doing this out of love for this book. Granted, I want to make money on it, but they're going to make money before I do. And that's how it's supposed to be. So once we get 25 grand, then I'll take a little bit up to that point. So if you want to make sure this is successful, not just for this one volume, but if we do very well at it, we'll do more volumes. And I've already had, especially a lot of the old alumni have been emailing me almost every day saying, how can I get in? How can I get in this? So
that's awesome, man.
So it's like, well, this one's full, but if we do well, I've already got inventory for volume 2 to go. No, I've got story pitches already in.
Well, honestly, with this kind of talent, it's a no-brainer that this is going to be fully funded and a lot more. But I still want to wish you all the luck, because I love anthologies like this. I like comics that are not just about superheroes, of course. As much as I love Green Lantern, Ron, as much as I love your Silver Surfer, as much as I love your Green Lantern, and all the other comics we've talked about, it's, to me as a kid, seeing those Vertigo comics that opened my mind up to a whole new different world of storytelling within the same medium that I've already fallen in love with was just, I don't know if there's any other kind of way to like explain how it made me feel. Like, wow, there's all this other, it's like I don't know if people remember the video rental stores. It's like the back room in the video rental stores that you weren't allowed to go as a kid. You all know what was back there, but you always wanted to know like what really was back there. It was kind of like that. Like your whole world is just opening up to all these new things. But yeah, it makes me happy that both of you are working on something again like this. Ron, there was a question about, I forgot to ask you about this, the Shinku complete collection. Was there an update on those?
The update is still working on it. Okay. It's a longish process, and I'll be honest, it's an emotionally draining process, because I'm getting the work of my late buddy out there. So probably another few months, and we'll be able to ship it off to ship it off to printing, and then then it's out of our hands. It's the printing will probably be done in Korea, and we'll see what sort of tariffs are in place at that point from the maniac in chief. And
now, books are not tariffed. And if you need a connection for a printer, let me know.
Yeah, I think we've got somebody that we've used previously, and I actually have a couple of more crowdfunding things coming up probably later this year, because there's just stuff that's been sitting here, like this.
Here, hold on. What was that? Can you hold that up again?
You're gonna have to freeze frame it. Yeah.
What was that, Ron? What was that?
Your Lois Lane book?
That's a book I'm doing with Laura Braga right now, which I can't talk about yet. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I would never want to run a crowdfunding campaign myself, because I've had an up close and personal view of those things, and it's a lot of work. I mean, you're spending at least as much time doing the campaign and then once the campaign's done, and then dealing with the fulfillment on you're probably spending 60% of your time doing all that stuff, the logistical stuff, and 40% of your time doing the creative work. I would much rather be doing the creative work, but there are ways to get your stuff out there on crowdfund where you're not doing that all by yourself. So there's some more stuff coming up later in the year where things that have been kind of being worked on in the background or have been done for a while and just need a home. Crowdfunding is a great, it's part of the publishing pie now. I think it used to be more of a separate entity where people who couldn't get their books done other places went to crowdfunding, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think now it's a choice for whatever works best for you and the project, and it's basically going direct to consumer.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on the comic marketplace. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, like I said, at Image and Boom and other places as well. Savage Sword of Conan, and got some stuff coming up there,
it's not an either or proposition now. There's plenty of stuff that has been crowdfunded or will be crowdfunded that is then going to end up at a publisher at some point, because publishers are starting to understand that there's crossover in that Venn diagram of crowdfunding and regular publishing, but it's not a circle. I know publishers used to feel like, oh well, this book was crowdfunded, so it's reached its audience already, and we're not going to sell any copies.
Yeah, I've had that argument with that discussion. I won't say argument with some retailers who just don't want to support crowdfunding, because it said first people who already have it said, well, let me think this way: if I had 1,000 people who bought my crowdfunding book, how many of those people went to your store? I said 2, maybe. So that means you have a huge audience of people who have not seen it or didn't even know it existed, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I think we lose sight of how plugged in the audience is, because we're out there when we do a book via Zoop or Kickstarter or whatever. We're out there promoting it every day, but look, not everybody's plugged in every day. Andy Lanning and I did a book called Resolution. With a number of artistic pals, and a majority of the pages drawn by Neto Diaz, who is now drawing X-Men.
Yep.
So I'll bring some copies of that to shows when I do them, and invariably people come up and go, "What is this? Where did this come from?" Mm-hmm. So the audience that you think is paying a lot of attention, look, everybody's got a life. Everybody's got stuff that is occupying their minds, especially in the current era in which we live. So don't assume that the audience knows what you're doing. It's pretty cool that you can show up to a show and that somebody who comes up to the table goes, "I've never heard of this," and they walk away with a copy. It's like discovering, hopefully, buried treasure.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, some really sweet messages here.
Yeah, we're doing it for you, Matt, and only you. Just let you know.
What is this? Okay, I need to know, what is this virtual after party stretch goal?
What Zoop and I have come up with the idea of like once we hit that goal, I'll get on with several of the contributors like Ron. I haven't told Ron this yet. Maybe a Phil Hester, maybe a Paul Jenkins, whatever. And we'll have like a little personal thing with some fans.
This, but with alcohol is what you're saying.
Like clothing optional, alcohol.
It always is.
Talking about here, Joe.
Always is. I do that at shows. Sometimes you ask my order, I take a picture. I said, "Do I need to be nude?" I had no problem with nudity.
You'll see those numbers triple now.
This is great.
Yeah, man.
Prelude.
Cool. I like that. I like the celebration idea. That's really cool. I don't think I've seen that before. A after party, a virtual after party stretch goal. That's cool. And I hope you do it. And I hope you get your after party virtual stretch goal.
We're going to because of this show.
Just because of this show. I will. I expect
our numbers since we started this conversation.
I expect my invite in the mail, Ron. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. I love everything. It is my
screwdriver.
We've had 4 new pledges since we started this conversation.
That's awesome. That's great. I love seeing people, take a chance on something they're not like, we were just talking to somebody that didn't really know exactly what this was and almost going out of their comfort zone sometimes to take a chance on something new and then falling in love with it. It makes it so much. Love it. So 64 page. Ron, you're working on a lot of things, man. You were like listing. What are you doing these days, brother?
I don't wonder what to do when I get up in the morning.
Let me. I need to say something really quick. I keep meaning to say this to you years back. One of my favorite things to me that happens when I come like taking a break from comics, as I did, like a lot of us do from college. Right? Like
and women,
we make mistakes and we get married and divorces. But anyway, coming back, it was always nice to see names like, oh, Ron Marz. I remember that guy. He used to write. Kyle Rayner, he used to write Silver Surfer. Oh, that's cool that he's still working in comedy. Oh, he's at CrossGen now. And I started a podcast back in 2004, 2005. Oh. Ron Marz was one of the first people I interviewed. It was you and Peter David, and I can't remember. Maybe it was Paul Jenkins, actually. But I remember you. The subject of Pat Lee came up. And I will never forget the way you answered it. Because it was like during that controversial time with Dreamwave Studios and owing people money and you were like, look, I don't know what's going on with that stuff. But, the guy was a professional around me. He delivered his pages on time, and that's all I can say about that. And I thought that was such a cool and smooth way of not talking ill about someone that you could have had a very well chance, like everybody else was doing at the time. And it made me think maybe this is why Ron is always working. He hasn't burnt any bridge. Well, I'm sure maybe he has. I don't know. But, like it seems like you haven't burnt bridges and you're still getting calls and people look to you and want to work with you.
Well, that's kind. I appreciate it. I think part of it is, the old sawhorse of if you want to work in comics, you have to be good and fast and easy to get along with. And if you've got 2 of those 3, you can probably work for quite a while in this business. If you got 3 out of those 3,
right,
you're good. If you got 1 out of 3,
okay,
do you want fries with that? It's eventually not going to work out because there's always somebody that's willing to come in and take that slot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I try to treat people as I would wish them to treat me. Be a professional, do your work, do the best work you can do in the time that you have. The short answer is don't be an asshole. You
would think a lot more people would just.
We don't. I am generally fond of saying we don't have a lot of assholes in comics, but the ones we do have are big assholes, so they kind of stand out. I'm not referring to you, Joe. So and I still love telling stories this way. I'll be working on a prose project this year. I'm still working for Blizzard video games on the Diablo franchise. But I love comics. I love telling stories with pictures. So I'll always be doing it in some form or another. And I've gotten a chance to play with most of the toys in the toy box. I'm very blessed in that sense. I've gotten to write a bunch of Marvel and DC stuff, and you get to scratch those itches as you go through your career. So now I'm in a position where I can kind of pick and choose what I want to do, and a lot of that is just coming up with your own thing and doing it yourself. That's a pleasure too. But like when the X-O Man of War Black, White, and Gold anthology came out, yes, I will absolutely do that. They wanted Daryl and I to come back and do a story in Green Lantern 600. Yes, I will absolutely do that. And there's still some Marvel and DC stories that I would like to get around to telling, but I keep coming back to it. But everybody loves pizza, but you don't want to have it 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So do different things, and I've always tried to stretch different muscles in what I write, so that I'm not bored, so that I'm not just repeating myself. If I get bored doing this job, it's my fault, nobody else's.
Yeah, well put, well said. I think and it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you too when you go to, for people that haven't gone to conventions. I think Lawrence Woods was talking about his experience and his kid. Like, I see the way that you treat fans, and I think that goes a long way. You give everybody the time. And I had no idea about that Green Lantern 600, by the way. That's cool. Like, I don't get single issues anymore like Joe. I'm all about collected editions, but I'll have to have my wife get that issue for me because she still gets the single issues. Because, yeah, man, I'm hoping we get some more of those compendiums.
Would be nice. I don't know.
I don't.
I've actually asked a couple times and have not gotten an answer. So
I've asked a couple times too, and now I actually work a little bit closer with their collected editions department, and I keep bringing it up. And I think we'll get a second one. I think they want to wrap up a couple of series during that era first, and then
I would hope. I mean, my not to be crass about it, but my royalty statement on the first one pretty good. It was we sold some copies, so and
that should be good then. I mean,
this might shock you, but publishers like to sell copies and make money.
Huh.
So if they can do that, write that down, Joe. Hey, Omar, I actually have a question for you.
Talk to me, brother.
Did I hear that there's a Surfer omnibus coming later this year with a bunch of my stuff and the Infinity Gauntlet in it?
Yeah, it's the follow-up to Return to the Spaceways. It is the Silver Surfer and the Infinity Gauntlet. So it'll have the beginning of Jim Starlin's run. It'll have the Infinity Gauntlet, and then they'll have some of your stuff in there with Ron Lim. Sorry, the other Ron.
I don't know this stuff. I see it reported online, and you never know. Sometimes I don't even know until the box shows up on the porch with a couple of comps in it.
I thought about texting you, but it's the next volume is definitely 100%. Well, not 100%. It would be like 95% your stories in there. This one is the beginning of or Jim Starlin taking over the book after. It was right after Steve Englehart left. So the one that would be called, I guess, the Infinity War, if they were to continue it, would be a majority your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there are worse fates than sharing an omnibus with Starlin. So,
Ron, you wrote Silver Surfer 50, right? Is that the cover that had
it was an embossed?
Jim wrote. I wrote 49. Jim wrote 50. Yeah, and then I took over from 51 on. So Jim scored that big fat royalty check on the.
I remember getting
50.
I think that's when I first met you. When did that come out? 90.
Oh hell, I don't know. 90. Shit.
90. Issue 50 of Silver Surfer. I want to say that's 93.
93, 94.
Next to me in San Diego at a booth.
Yeah, wrong I am.
that was around that time, because I remember that book being in San Diego, and I remember talking to you there. I think maybe that's when I met you.
I stand corrected. Issue 50 came out in 1991. I really thought it was 1993.
Oh man, that's crazy. I've been doing this a while.
Well, I've been doing San Diego since '90, so yeah.
I haven't had a real job in quite a while, apparently. So yeah, Jim did 50 and I did 75, which also had a cooler embossed cover on it.
It's 75, so I'm thinking of then.
The technology had gotten a little bit better for the silver foil, and now I guess we're not going back to the foil age. We're just going back. We're introducing the blind bag age, which I don't know is a great idea, but
everything old is new, man.
Everybody likes to gamble, so
yeah, I think 75 is what I'm thinking of, and I think you're next to me in San Diego at a booth or something.
75 would have been the following year. Then that would have been 1992.
Okay, 2 years later.
No, 75 would have been like 2 years down the road, probably.
No, like 90.
Burn came out.
So that's the one with that had the embossed cover with nothing but silver on it.
Right.
And it had the Heralds of Galactus in the back because it's part of the Herald ordeal.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a guy that memorizes all the storylines and when they took place or anything.
You're one of those guys.
I know you longer than I thought I did, Ron.
Yes, we need a Kyle Rayner Green Lantern Omni. You're not just one, brother. We need. Let me see how many. I actually mapped this out. I mapped this out to 4 Omnis, all of it.
Wow.
Now your Ion story, I'm sure you know this, is in the Green Lantern Compendium Volume 1. It just came out in December, last week of December.
Oh, it's out?
Yeah, it's out. I'm actually I was blessed enough that DC asked, how the mapping looks, and we went back and forth. It was really cool to get to map that book out as well.
That's cool. I have not received a copy, so I had no idea it was
out. My co-host Dom did the overview on it because he was like, "Please let me do it. Please let me do it." I'm like, "But I helped map it." Okay, go ahead. I'm waiting for my.
Honestly, I mean that's a skill set, and it's and you would think that you'd just be like, well, you just start with the first issue and go to the last. It's not like that. It's not like that. When we did the Marvel versus DC omnibuses, I mean, we spent a lot of time on Zoom calls sorting out what order should stuff go in and where certain issues should fall with it. There's science to it, but there's a bit of art as well that you're figuring out where things should fit in the book, and there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer for some of it. You're just figuring out what's the most right answer.
One of those things with the DC versus Marvel Omnis that I always wondered when they would come is that whole Wildstorm era. Because I mean, technically now it's under DC, so they have like, the Wildcats and X-Men books that they could reprint, the Gen X and Gen 13 books, and then of course the whole Alien stuff, the Aliens, Batman versus Predator, all that stuff. Man, that would be. There's a lot of lawyers involved. If Batman, Aliens, which obviously is under the Disney purview now. Some of that stuff like my Batman Aliens, Green Lantern Aliens. I don't know if those things will ever see print again because now they're sort of orphans. I never want to say never, because we live in a time where we have DC versus Marvel 2 Omnis. We have Rom and Godzilla and Micronauts and G.I. Joe and Transformers. It's insane. Maybe one day.
I just about fell out of my chair when it was DC's editorial side contacted me about the Marvel versus DC omnibus, and they were like, "You can't tell anybody, but we're doing this." And I was, because I just thought those are never seeing print again, and it went great, and I know they sold a buttload of them, and then I believe they've gone into second printings.
Yeah, there was a restock done,
or maybe even third,
and it was huge. It was huge. Just reread the Green Lantern Alien story recently. Still fantastic. Huge fan of your Green Lantern run, aren't we all? Well, I don't know. Maybe Joe isn't. Joe, did you like his Green Lantern run?
I didn't read it. No, I'm a Green Lantern fan, so Ron's a good writer and good character.
He is. Man. His run on Green Lantern got me to keep reading comics, even though I wanted to get away long before. And then when I came back, it was nice to see his name still working in comics. I think at that time it was you were doing Witchblade with Stepan Sajak. Like some of his
I mean, that was never a book that that was not on my bucket list of books to write. But when it was offered to me and I said, okay, well, let's give it a try and see, just turned out to be a great fit. Sometimes the books that you don't really have any experience or interest with are the ones that turn out to be a really good fit, because you don't come to it with any fan sort of adulation, or you can come to it sort of with a clear-eyed view of what this is or what it should be. And that was definitely the case with Witchblade, where I don't think I'd ever read an issue in my life before they offered it to me. Obviously, Top Cow sent me a entire box. It was long enough ago that they sent me actual physical copies, not just
instead of a PDF.
Not just a PDF. So the UPS man comes staggering up the driveway with this huge box of like 80 issues of Witchblade, and and I read a bunch and just thought, okay, well, I can see what I would do with this, but if what I would do is not what you guys want, we probably shouldn't go out on a date. But Top Cow was great about just saying, no, we want you to do what you do. And they turned me loose, and I did it for about 10 years.
So we talked about, before we wrap up, we talked about collected editions we would love to see. I know that I mentioned to Joe, I think it'd be great to see some of the classic Negative Burn stuff collected in big, fat hardcovers, oversized, beautiful introduction from some of the, just saying. I know a guy that would love to own that and could help spread the word of that. For Ron, I know I've told Ron this before, behind the scenes to his face, one of as much as I love his Green Lantern, as much as I love his Surfer, and enjoyed the Thor book he did, but oh man, Scion, that's the one I want. With some of that early Jim Chung. Jim Chung was killing it back then, man. I love that stuff. And then of course later on the other artists that took over. We've had 2 Omnis. I'm hoping that Marvel keeps those coming. So
yeah, I don't know what the fate of the CrossGen stuff is with the Omnibus reprints.
Tyler knows. Yes, son.
It seems like they were just going in publication order, because starting your Omnibus editions with Scion seemed to be or with Sigil rather.
Sigil, and then
seemed an odd choice.
Meridian.
But I mean, I would love to have a Scion Omnibus. I adored that book. I loved working with Jim. One of my favorite issues of all time would be in that, which was the last issue we did together, which was a Prince Valiant style issue. And I've talked to the collections that are up at Marvel, and I said, hey, are you doing more? Because I've got Scion artwork that's never been seen before, stuff that hasn't been printed, that was done for Hollywood pitches and offer books to get producers and directors involved.
Oh yeah.
So there's some really cool Jim Chung stuff that's never seen print, and I've got most of those as digital files, and Jim's got a chunk more. But when we had that discussion, the answer was, yeah, we don't know. There was no movement one way or the other. So maybe something's changed.
But that's not necessarily. I never take those as a no. I take those as, because they're books that I was supposed to announce 4 or 5 years ago that are finally coming out in 2020, towards the end of 2026. So I never take any of the we know one day as a no. I kind of take them as a okay. At least they are aware these things exist. So that's a I don't know. That's a small.
Yeah,
win.
I certainly fingers crossed. I think CrossGen did a lot of pretty cool material that I would love to see. Back in print. That we had, I think, the best collection of artists in one spot at one time, maybe ever.
Dude, there was so much talent at CrossGen. It is insane. Somebody needs to do a damn documentary on that small, tiny era of comics that was just so huge and unbelievable. Like, yeah, man. So I talked about what I wanted. What about you, Ron? What's a book that you would love to see collected that you know you want to see on your bookshelf or on my bookshelf or on everybody's bookshelf?
Well, I mean, most of them are back there or piled up on the floor. My answer for this used to be Marvel Fanfare, because that was always, to me, that was my holy grail of to sort of go back to anthologies. There was so much cool stuff in there that I always wanted a big beefy hardcover of all of that stuff, and now we have it. So, and with a second one due, or either might even be out yet.
I think no, the second one comes out in February. I have an early copy of it. 3 comes out in November.
So yeah, I mean, Marvel Fanfare to me is just a delightful run. The other one that I'm really would love to get my hands on is American Flagg.
That they are redoing American Flagg. Its Image is releasing a big collection later this year. So same for me. Yes. That's one that
yes, they are. And I didn't know if it had been announced yet, because Howard Jagan was sitting next to me at a show.
They don't get me to announce anything. It dropped in the catalog, and I'm like, "That's how you're gonna do it?" Okay.
So yeah, American Flagg. I know we've had a bunch of different Nexus reprints. That's another huge checklist book for me. But Flagg is just, there's been kind of there was one that Dynamic Forces did a while ago, a long time ago, and nothing since. The complete Flagg is tops on my list now.
I would love to see that, but we've had so many of these classic stuff collected. Joe, you're a man that likes collected editions, big books. What would you like to see that hasn't been made yet?
Well, I was a big fan of Epic Illustrated back in the day. I actually had a conversation with Marvel this year where I was actually trying to get the rights to do collections and new material under Epic Illustrated, and I thought I had a deal until I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, Marvel lawyers shut it down. But I was super excited about that. That's one reason Negative Burn came around, because I was trying to do Epic Illustrated, and when that went away, I was like, I have to do an anthology, so I'm gonna bring back Negative Burn.
Yeah, that was the Epic Illustrated was a big book for me, because I, when you become a teenager and you think, oh well, comics, those are for kids, I'm not going to read those anymore. I kept getting Epic Illustrated because that was for adults. There was nudity. There was nudity in that. So it was, obviously that was for adults.
I noticed.
I loved that magazine as long as it lasted. To me, it was a little, it was a bit of an Americanized version of heavy metal, and I generally liked it better than heavy metal.
I did too.
Now I've been in heavy metal, and that's a really cool, bucket list thing to check off as well. But man, those Epic, I guess part of it must be the rights must be a pain in the ass.
Well, I reached out to a bunch of the creators in Epic Illustrated, and I was lining it all up until, like again, Marvel lawyers shut it down.
I think with a lot of things, it's easier to say no, like right off the bat, than because no means nobody gets in trouble.
Well,
yes, it means somebody might get in trouble at some point.
Vast majority of the work in Epic Illustrated work for their own, and they still control it. No, of course, some have passed away, and aside from Silver Surfer from the first volume issue, and then the Galactus story later on.
That's Galactus story, yeah.
Most everything else was creator controlled. So if I really wanted to, I could do a best of type collection, just not call it Epic Illustrated, but defeat the purpose. So I'm thinking kind of lean towards now is like maybe picking out certain creators and try to do a big, nice hardcover slipcase edition of their stories from Epic and maybe other places as well.
That would be awesome. I had never read the series because I was too young when it was coming out. Didn't know it wasn't in my face, but it was the Strange Tales from the 80s, the magazine. Fantagraphics just released a collection of it. The not Strange Tales, I'm sorry. The Savage Tales. Yeah. That thing blew me away. And it reminded me of something that you guys are doing here with kind of although they are kind of like war stories, but throughout time. But it's just kind of giving creators the free reign to do what they want to. And I love that. I love anthologies like that. That was one of my favorite. I think it comes out in February. I just did an early video on it and I fell in love with it. I thought it was amazing. And I'm like, how did this not succeed? How did it just fail? And I don't think people were ready for something like that at the time or even knew how to get it. Yeah. So here is the link to Negative Burn. There is also a link in the description of the video if you're watching this later. And go and check it out. There's some amazing talent in there, not just Joe Pruett and Ron Marz. You have people in there like James Robinson and Phil Hester, Joe Jusko, Sam Keith, Joe Lister. That was another one. He did one of the covers, I believe. Brian Boland, Marjorie Bennett, Mike Allred, J.M. Mateus, Francisco Francavilla, and Paul Jenkins. So Paul Pope, my gosh. It's crazy the amount of talent that is going into this book. I just want to thank both of you so much for joining me today. Besides this, Joe, are you working on anything else where people can find you?
Yeah, I'm doing a series of Image right now called Viking Moon.
Great. You mentioned that earlier. Awesome.
2 issues out so far of that. I've got some Savage Sword of Conan shorts coming up with one with Goran Suzuka. I'm not sure if I should pronounce it or not. And another with Mike Allred that we just mentioned his name. I just did a story in Hello Darkness number 17 from Boom with Stevan Subic. And I have I have a one shot from Image in April called Kilroy Is Here. So an old Caliber series I did back in the 90s. I'm doing a revival one shot, see if there's any interest to do more. So that'll be coming out in April. And then a couple more series here and there. I'm also doing my very first French graphic album with the artist, a French artist, Philippe. It looks like Xavier. I'm sure it's not pronounced that way. That called The Territory. That would be out in the fall over in France. But we also kept the U.S. rights to publish it here. So I'll be putting out through one of the major companies here in the fall as well. That's a 5-issue series. And I think it's some of the best stuff I've ever done.
Wow, dude, you're busy.
Yeah, and a couple more and more art books. No, just got Joe Jusko getting ready to do a Jim Starlin. Talking to a few other guys about doing stuff there as well, and hopefully more Negative Burn.
I'd love to see it. Ron, you mentioned some things you can't talk about, but what about things you can talk about? Where can people find your work currently?
Let's see. We got a bunch of short stories that are coming up. Green Lantern 600, Savage Sword of Conan stuff, which is just, don't tell those guys I do that stuff for free. There's a book that we're doing that's not going to be out until 2027 that I can't tell you the publisher or the title.
You tease,
but it's a cool thing. I shouldn't say more. It's very cool, and it's been a while in the making. So then there'll be a couple of crowdfunded books later in the year, and there's always stuff here and there. Plus, like I said, I'm still showing up for work at Blizzard, working on the Diablo franchise, doing some stuff in India, doing a prose project with an artist who's a buddy. So I need more hours in the day. Send those if you can.
And Tyler might know your letterer at Savage Sword. That was a very talented guy.
Savage Sword is just an absolute pleasure. Those
Man,
guys,
those books,
those guys at Titan handles the publishing. Heroic Signatures is the editorial arm.
Yeah.
So
They
good.
just let you do the job, and
Yeah.
it's such a cool. And actually, there's another El Borak story that Mike Perkins and I are doing for Savage Sword.
I love Mike.
Mike Perkins, who is a alum of Negative Burn.
Yeah, first
Yeah.
one was in Negative Burn.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah, my Savage Sword with Mike already. We're doing a young Conan with the horn helmet and everything. That's what Mike wanted to draw.
You mean he's like 6 years old, right? That'd be cool.
Yeah, in diapers.
There's not enough of that. I just want to thank everybody for joining us live. And if you're watching this later, click the link. Go and check out the Zoop. There's many different tiers, many different covers. I think there's only one tier right now that is sold out, but try to join that virtual party celebration. Yeah.
Clothing optional. So
That would be cool. So thank you all so much. Stay healthy and safe, everybody. We are at a
pleasure.
wonderful day.